This video is over finding the slope when you're given a table or a word problem. Now, when we're talking about finding the slope, when you're talking about a table or a word problem, it's really not the slope. It's called your rate of change. So if we look at this particular table, and I want you to find our rate of change, you might remember from back when we were talking about linear functions that you look at the change in x and the change in y. Well, this is going up by 30, and this is going up by 30. And my change in y, I'm adding 1.5 here, and I'm adding 1.5 in my y's. So remember when we were talking about slope of a line, we said it was the change in y over the change in x. Well, it's the exact same thing on a table. You're looking for a constant rate of change in y over change in x. So we said my change in y is 1.5 and my change in x is 30. So if I was going to figure out what this means, I would look at what my x and y values mean. Now I can see that my x is time and my y is distance. So what this tells me, if I put 1.5 divided by 30 in my in my calculator, I'm going to get 0.05 miles per minute. And that is what that rate of change means for this particular situation. Okay, let's look at another one. Determine whether the rate of change is constant in this table, and if it is, find the rate of change and explain what it represents. Okay, again, I'm going to look at my x value, which is the speed of the ball, and I'm adding 3 here, I'm adding 3 here, and I'm adding 3 there. So I have a constant rate of change in my x values. Let's look at my y values, how they're changing. Going from here to here, I add 1.5. Here to here, I add 1.5. And here to here, I add 1.5. So I do have a constant rate of change. I'm adding, and my change in y over my change in x is 1.5 over 3. And again, if I put that in my calculator, I'm going to get 0.5. Now, what this means for this particular situation is my ball travels 0.5 or 1/2 inches per second. All right. So if you have a table, this is how you find your slope, which is really your rate of change. I would like you to do this one. So pause the video, see if you can work it out, and then come back to me doing it and compare it against, compare it against what I have done. Okay, you should have gotten that there is a constant rate of change, and it is 8.5 over 1. And what that means is $8.5 are earned for an hour's work. So per hour. Okay, now let's look at our next thing here. What if I'm giving a word problem instead of a table? I don't want you to just look at a word problem and seize up. Know that you know how to do it. Okay, during the fundraiser, 3 students earned $75 and 5 students earned $125. In this situation, what is the independent and the dependent variables? Well, we've got 2 things. We've got number of students, and we have dollars earned. Okay, my phone is going crazy because the World Series is on. Sorry. So, in this situation, the number of students, my number of students is my independent variable, and my dollars earned are my dependent variable. So let's just make this into a table. And when I had 3 students, they earned $75. When I had 125 students, no, what am I saying? Goofball me. When I had 5 students, I had $125. Okay. So, without graphing, tell whether the slope of the situation is positive, negative, 0, or undefined. Well, let's take a look. When they talk about slope, they really mean rate of change. So let's look at our rate of change. And when you look at our change in y, it's going up by 2. When you look at our change, that was our change in x, excuse me. When we look at our change in y, that's going up by 50. So I have a change in y, which is 50, over a change in x, which is 2. So this is, since they're both positive, this is a positive rate of change or a positive slope. And what this means, if I put that in my calculator, I'm going to get $25 is earned for each student or per student. Okay. What if I have this one? It says, 4 workers created 17 paintings. 7 workers also created 17 paintings. Without graphing, tell whether the slope of this situation is positive, negative, 0, or undefined, and then find the slope. Well, again, I'm probably going to use a graph on this, and I'm going to say number of workers is my independent variable, and number of paintings that they create is my dependent variable. So let's make a table. It says I have 4 workers and they created 17 paintings. And then here it says I have 7 workers and they created 17 paintings. All right, now let's look at our rate of change or our slope. Well, that's going up by 3, but this is going up by 0. So remember, our rate of change is change in y over change in x. My change in y, or my outputs, is 0. My change in x is 3. And if I put that in my calculator, I would get 0. So I have a slope of 0. So basically what that means is it doesn't matter how many workers I have a constant number of paintings. All right, I think that you have what you need to find the rate of change given a table or a word problem, and you only have one more video to go before you can start working on your homework.